Hi, Gary. Let's take a look at this fourth essay set you've sent us. The task 2 is about extended business hours. Here's what you wrote. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether shops extending their business hours almost every day of the week is a positive or negative development. Some believe this is a negative change, in lowercase h. However, personally, I strongly believe longer business hours, get rid of the, is a positive change. This essay will argue that shops having extended business hours almost every day of the week will be a positive development using examples from the UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, that's nice. It's a long introduction. You probably could have taken some of this out, particularly here. You could have just maybe said this essay will argue my viewpoint using examples, etc., etc. So you could have left all of this out, but it's fine. Okay, let's move on. On the one hand, there is ample evidence to suggest that having longer business hours every day of the week is a negative development. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, extended business hours will get people to stay out on the streets longer at night. This can cause a noise disturbance towards residences. Residences, or do you mean maybe residents? Because it's the residents that prefer to sleep at that time. TS. Secondly, shops opening longer are stealing a business away from some certain shops, such as pubs, bars, and restaurants, where their businesses focus, get rid of the ES, on after hours operations. Interesting point there. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of businesses that started extending their business hours had at least one complaint every week from their community. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that shops extending their business hours almost every day of the week has a negative development that affects businesses and local residences. Okay, fine. On the other hand, although there is a case for the negatives of shops extending their business hours, the impact of having extended hours has a positive side that cannot be overstated. This is largely because longer hours result in here, business owners having to hire additional employees or increase working hours for staff, singular, to operate the shop. This allows staff, singular, to work at night and earn more money to spend, and the shops are able to generate higher sales revenue. For example, an extensive study by Oxford University showed that over 90% of business owners and staff, no S, are happy because they're making more money by extending the shop, get rid of the S, hours of operation. Consistent with this line of thinking is that the shops extending their business hours is a positive development for employees and shop owners. All right, that's a little superfluous. I don't think you really needed that sentence here. I would have gotten rid of it. And then you could just say, thus it is possible to state beyond doubt that more shops are going to, well, no, actually, this is what you should say. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that shops extending their business hours is a positive development for employees and shop owners. So get rid of this and keep this, but just add this expression. I think you understand what I'm suggesting here. Writing both these sentences is a little redundant, so just pick the strongest part of each one and stick with just one of those sentences. So, from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the benefits, S, outweigh the negative developments of shops having extended business hours almost every day of the week. It is predicted that in the future, more and more shops will extend their hours of operation. All right, this is nice. I really like this, Gary. This was very good. It's really developed. It's cohesive. It's strong. I mean, you've developed it. It's lovely. Okay, there's a little things here and there that a couple things here and there that you could have potentially changed, but on the whole, it's very good. All right, now let's take a look at your other essay. Okay, here it is. It's the one about rainfall. Here's what you wrote. This line graph shows the annual rainfall of England, Scotland, and Wales in 2018. The rainfall level for these three countries, no comma here, fluctuates up and down throughout the year. You don't need to say up and down because that's what fluctuate means. So instead, let's just simplify it a little bit and say the rainfall levels for these three countries fluctuated throughout the year. Only Wales and Scotland have rainfall levels measured under 50 ml. Wales had rainfall in January at 45 ml, in April at 20, and August, September, and October all around 40 ml. Scotland had, be consistent here with your tenses. Scotland had 2 months under 50 ml of rainfall in February at 20 ml and April at 40 ml. All three countries had months where rainfall reached above 100. Here I would have liked a semicolon or a colon. Scotland in January at 125, July at 120, and March and October at 135 ml. England had 7 months over 100 ml. Okay, again, colon, January at this, March at this, July at this. Okay. Also, Wales reached above 100 ml of rainfall. Okay, let me tell you what's happening. I'm not reading the whole thing because this is what we call a mechanical response. All of these sentences are identical to each other. And while you have absolutely pinpointed the main information here and the most important information, you have done it in such a way that it is mechanical. What does that mean? It means it feels really robotic. So all you're concerned about is getting those points across to your reader, but not really analyzing how you are getting them across, okay? All of these sentences are identical to each other, and that's something I want you to avoid. I mean, you could have just given me a bulleted list, for example. So that's why you saw me read it the way I did, and I pretty much just stopped because it's a mechanical answer. What does this mean for you? This means not such a great score as far as task achievement is concerned. Examiners do look at this, and when they see very repetitive, very mechanical writing, they will lower a score, even though it has every other element that it needs to have. All right, so let's look at your overview. Overall, the highest rainfall is in the month of July for England at 125 ml, Scotland at okay. Now, this isn't an overview, Gary. Why? Because it's detailed. That's not what your overview is supposed to be. Your overview is supposed to be able to give the person reading this, this line graph an idea of what you're looking at, like in a very general sort of way, so they can kind of envision what you're looking at, again, in a very general way. So what would have been a good overview here? You could have said that while all three countries experienced considerable fluctuation throughout the year, England's rainfall was the most stable. Okay, or England's rainfall was the highest on average. Okay, or you could say that England had the least fluctuation. Okay, so any one of those expressions would have been accurate here and absolutely appropriate. And you'll notice that I didn't include any data in that overview, but that's what an overview is supposed to be. Okay, it's not supposed to include data. Data belongs in your detailed paragraphs. And speaking of your detailed paragraphs, you really lumped everything together into just one paragraph. Not such a great idea. There are other ways to do this. It's 158 words. Okay. You really probably want to focus on 2 paragraphs. I realize that that might be a little difficult because you have 3 different countries to talk about here. It can be done, though. It can be done. I've seen it done, actually. So I assure you it can be done. So going back to what I said about this mechanical response, you'll notice that the problem with a mechanical response like this is that there's no variety in the language you use. There's no range. It's just, look at this. Look at some of the verbs you used here. It had rainfall at this, and this. It had months where rainfall reached this, and this. It reached above. So it's a very limited range of vocabulary. And so that's also going to lower your score. This is kind of one of those unfair things with IELTS where you will basically be penalized in 2 to 3 different areas. What do I mean? I mean an examiner is going to look at this and say, okay, well, it's mechanical, so it's going to lower the task achievement score. And not because it's mechanical, there's a very small range of vocabulary words, so a lowered score there too. And because every sentence is pretty identical to each other, it's going to lower your grammatical range and accuracy score. Listen to what it's called. It's called grammatical range. So since so many of the sentences are similar to one another, it doesn't show enough range, okay? So like I said, even though you pinpointed some of the key points in this answer, you did it in such a way that it's not an effective task 1, all right? So what could you have done? There are a million things you could have done to make this better. First of all, Um, I probably would have started off talking either about Scotland because it started the year off at the highest figure, or England. You could go either way, but maybe Scotland is a better choice. You could start off by saying that in January, Scotland recorded the highest rainfall of the three countries at whatever number that is, okay? This was followed by its first and its greatest massive decline to whatever the number that is, about 20 in February, followed by the first of two peaks in March at this, and its second peak was here. For the months in between, it experienced considerable fluctuation. At the end of the year, it ended in December at just above 100. Okay, and then you're done with Scotland. For England, then you can say England had the second highest rainfall in January at 110. Let's say that that's what that number is. It reached its lowest point in between May and June at, I don't know, 75, followed by continued fluctuation with three peaks in July, September, and December at approximately 125. Done with England. And then you can do something rather similar with Wales, okay? But this is how I would treat this. You could see that there was a range of language used, and that's what I'm trying to get you to do, okay? Go ahead and correct these, return them back to us. I think you've got another set of essays coming back to us, so go ahead and do those, and I look forward to them. Good luck.